This is one of their mobile kitchens, and they actually
is that even some what I call habitual
beautiful Stop and Shop in the Wilton penalty, but it was actually a tax, and that it. Absolutely. What's the name of the show?
Welcome to the Marty Heiser Show. I'm Dave Streit, and I'll be the guest host filling in for Marty this evening. We've got a pretty interesting show tonight. First half of the show, we're going to be talking to Senator Joe Markley, one of the true progressives in Connecticut. And in the last half of the show, we're going to revisit the roundtable because there's a lot to cover these days. To start the show, I want to start out with just one news story. Some of you have seen this picture over the course of the last couple days. I think it's a pretty touching picture. This is a picture of George Sr., and he shaved his head in solidarity with a 2-year-old boy that had leukemia and was going through treatment that caused him to lose his hair. This little boy happens to be the son of one of the security guards that does the detail for, provides security for George Sr. I think that's pretty touching. That shows a little bit of the character of George Bush. I mean, think about it. You look at the George Bush, the family of George Bush, his kids, the extended family. They're really quite outstanding. I had the opportunity to go to a fundraiser at a woman's house with George Sr. and Barbara Bush, and it was one of the most touching nights of my life. Most enjoyable. Without further delay, I'm going to introduce Senator Joe Markley. He's the senator from the 16th District. He has one of the most exciting stories in Connecticut politics that I can recall anyway. So without further ado, Joe, welcome to the show. Jim, good to see you.
Thanks, Dave.
As an honored guest once again. Senator, thanks a lot for coming in tonight.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
that. And when I did a little background check, and just for the vast viewing audience here tonight, I just thought I'd at least express the fact that the way I came to be familiar with you and your record was after the gun laws passed in Connecticut. I started looking at the list of who had common sense, and I said, you know what? There's one guy, Joe Markley. So I picked up the phone, I gave you a call. 2 days later, you called back. Senators don't do that. Why would you take time for me? I had a friend of mine call you. You did the same thing. It's pretty impressive.
Don't encourage people too much.
That's okay. Well, take us back a little bit, because you were first swept into office at age 27.
With Ronald Reagan, back when we had a party lever in 1984. In fact, we went from 12 Republicans out of 36 to 24 Republicans in one election cycle. And then in 1986, which was the last year we had a party lever, we went from 24 Republicans back down to 11. So I served one term back then, was very involved in politics for a while. I was extremely involved in the anti-income tax effort in 1991. And at a certain point, in part because of what happened, the fact that we had everyone in the state on our side, and we still ended up stuck with an income tax. The powers that be in both parties kind of circled the wagons against us. And I thought, what am I doing banging my head against a wall? I got out of it. And let's say the present emergency kind of got me back into it.
But hold it. That was Lowell Weicker that gave us the income tax, right?
Yeah, Lowell Weicker, yes, and the regular gang at the Capitol. I mean, people don't remember that he had Republican support and he had business support. CBIA, Connecticut Business and Industries Association, spent millions of dollars promoting the income tax.
What was their motivation?
They wanted a place at the table. This is often the motivation in Hartford. And there also is this sense of, up here at the Capitol, we know better than the unwashed masses. We kind of understand that it's necessary. And of course, they got a great deal. They got a spending cap. So we would never, ever, ever have a spending problem again. And the only way to keep spending down is don't raise taxes. Cut off the supply and force the politicians to live on what they get.
So giving us an income tax, didn't that solve all our problems? Didn't that take care of our debt? Do we actually have debt today?
Do you know what it resulted in? In the last 20 years, we are dead last in the country in economic growth since we passed that income tax. Behind Michigan, behind Rhode Island, behind whatever United state you can think of. All of them have done better than Connecticut. But since we passed the income tax, state spending on average has grown over 7% a year, every single year. Think about that, getting 7% increase every year. And the population has hardly grown at all. The economy has hardly grown at all. All we've done is chase our industry out of the state. and we are in the soup now.
So what you're saying is that Democrats in Hartford want to do for Connecticut what they did for Detroit, maybe.
I don't know what they want to do, but that's what their policies, I think, add up to in the end, which is to say, let's keep expanding the role of government, and we'll find somebody to put the burden on. And then the next thing you know, just like our cities, you look around and you say there's no one left with any money to tax. So we've got to reach out. In the case of the cities, we say, well, the answer is we have to have regional government so that we can get our hands into somebody else's pocket.
Well, like we talked earlier, I'm reminded of a line from Top Gun where the general confronts Tom Cruise and says, son, you know, your ego's writing checks your body can't deliver.
That's exactly
and I'm
right.
thinking in this situation, the Democrats are making promises their party can never deliver.
No, it's the taxpayers of Connecticut cannot afford to keep those promises. And we are headed for a brick wall or a cliff or whatever you want to call it.
And when do we hit that?
Well,
we're already there.
We're like the cartoon where the guy goes off the cliff and he's still running and he looks down. I feel like that's where we are. But my feeling about it all is we haven't even taken our foot off the accelerator. This last budget we passed increases spending over 2 years by over 9%. And this is considered an austerity budget.
But isn't that just keeping pace
Malloy.
with inflation?
Yeah, inflation, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it is. We're an extreme problem, and the only answer in the end is not constitutional spending caps. Well, we can always you can't tie your own hands in a way that you can't untie them. And that's our problem with trying to put restrictions on the legislature. What we need are legislators that don't want to increase spending, that want to reduce the size and scope of government, that want to keep the tax burden low, that realize taxes are too high and they have to go in the other direction. We have to elect people like that. We've got to get rid of our governor next year. We've got to put conservatives into the legislature. We've got to get Republican control of the state Senate, which I'm convinced we can do. We only need 5 seats.
That's not too bad. Out of
it
a
isn't
total
bad.
of how many?
36.
5 out of 36.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, we were talking about Tea Party before, and the essence of what the cure to the problem is kind of the Tea Party message, and that's, limited government, responsible spending, et cetera. But that takes a politician who, wants to do less.
Yeah.
They can't put themselves out there. They can't grandstand. They have to actually go there to do little or nothing. And politicians these days don't want to do that. They want to promise and they want to give away.
It's tough to do. I was asked about this just recently. Why is it that we put all these hundreds of millions of dollars into bringing in businesses from out of state, and we're not helping the businesses that are there? Because the Governor Malloy, when they open Jackson Labs, will have a great big pair of scissors in his hand, and there'll be a big ribbon to cut, and it's a great photo op. If what you do is generally help the business climate, there's no particular credit to take for it. And when you kill business, you don't have to, there's no photo op there. When the store closes, there's no politician standing in front of it saying, my tax policy resulted in this business failure.
Well, and a great example of that was Obama's subsidies for green energy companies. It was a big to-do when he rolled out the money and gave it to them.
Right.
It was a big photo op, and then when they go bust and all of his cronies abscond with hundreds of millions, nobody
It's
ever says
unfortunate.
anything. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah,
And then China
competition.
China comes and buys the company up. It's
Right.
the most craziest thing.
You've got people that get it. I mean, you write down here, we were talking, your friend Dan Carter, great guy, real conservative. Mike McLaughlin, John Chabin. These are the kind of legislators. We just need a few more of them, and we can take this state in the right direction.
Okay, so let's roll back a little bit further. So age 27, you get swept into office. 2 years, you get swept out of office, and then you disappear. What happened?
Well, as I said, I stayed in it. I was the town chairman in Southington for a while. I stayed involved. I was very involved in the anti-income tax thing. I worked for my good friend Tom Scott. Ran his congressional campaign. They almost beat Rosa DeLauro. But at a certain point, I thought, I'm getting nowhere. I'm going to go off and go back and do the literature thing, which is what I was really trained for. And I did that for a long time. And at a certain point, again, like a lot of people that were sitting on their sofa and getting mad at the television, I thought, if I had the chance again, I know what needs to be done in elections. I know the message that we need to give. And so I started to get back involved. And then suddenly the cards just fell in such a way that I ran for my old seat. They tell me it's the longest gap in service in the history of the state legislature.
Gotcha. Do we have someone calling in? I don't see anyone calling in. We got it. Anyway, so keep going.
I keep broke
Well,
my
you know what?
rhythm
Let me.
now.
No, I'm sorry. So why don't we have another number up there to call in? I have my cell phone here, 203-216-8153. So it's probably going to be tough to change that. But if whoever was trying to call in, 203-216-8153. So anyway, so you knew what had to be fixed, and
Yeah.
you felt the calling. See, now I can identify with that because I get tired of people that just sit at home and complain and never lift a finger to do anything about it.
Well, one of the things we mentioned the Tea Party before, I saw in 1991 a grassroots explosion against the income tax. All of a sudden, I saw the same kind of grassroots thing, and I thought, what these people need to do is not simply to stand on the side of the street waving signs and flags.
Right.
They've got to find candidates, and they've got to organize, and they've got to elect people to the state legislature. And I actually started running around the state trying to meet with people and say, here's what district, what I just asked the two of you, as a matter of fact, what district you're in, who's your state representative, is it somebody that needs to be replaced?
Right.
Let's do it. And
No matter what the party, right?
well, if they need to be replaced,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
And I was able to recruit some candidates, but in the midst of it, suddenly the opportunity came for me to run. And as I said before, when I did it at 27, I didn't. You don't think about the downside. At coming to it at 54, it took a little bit more. It was more of a leap of faith. But like a lot of things, like they say about riding a bicycle, once I got back into it, it wasn't that
So does it
difficult.
feel good to be back in?
Yes, in a lot of ways, I enjoy it more because I think having been out of it and come back, it's almost like found money. You feel, you're elected at 27, and you're thinking, well, state senate, maybe I'll be a congressman, and maybe this will happen, and maybe
Right,
that'll
right.
happen. At this point, I think whatever happens, happens.
Right.
I'm going to do exactly what I think I ought to do. I'll tell you this, I had 24 years to think about my votes. I never thought, gee, I wish I had sold out on that issue. The only thing I ever thought was, I wish I had voted exactly what I believed every single time I had the chance.
So your platform, and you started to talk about it before the show started, one is no new taxes.
No new taxes. I said that when I ran in '84. We got a tax rate. When there's economic growth, revenues will increase. If government wants to do more, that's the time to do it. When the economy shrinks, government should take less too. There's no reason why they should reach deeper into our pockets. So we don't increase taxes. Fiscal responsibility means you live on what you get. Limited constitutional government. Let the federal government turn the power back over to the states. Let the states turn the power over to the municipalities. Put it closer to the people, and respect personal liberty, which is the foundation of this country.
Okay,
That we're
now
all sovereign
that is a
citizens.
progressive perspective.
If
Now,
you
tell
call
me-
it progressive,
there you
that's
go.
what it is.
So tell me, how the heck does that platform get elected in Connecticut? How close was it?
That platform cleans up in Connecticut. This is my point. Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, that's what they want to hear. And the only problem is to get Republicans to believe in that platform and to get Republicans to articulate it in a way that people understand it and they believe in it.
For so long, Republicans have probably been in the minority that they feel a little beaten down, and so they kind of, it's like the Republicans before the Congress in the 92 or the 94
That's right.
revolution. They were so beaten down from the 1950s, they just kind of went along in the Congress, especially the House.
I'll tell you another thing that works against us, which is the strength of the Republican Party has always been in Fairfield County. But Fairfield County Republicans, because they've got a good Republican base, basically can move to the center to try to guarantee their position. In the rest of the state, if I'm running in the east end of Waterbury, which is heavily, heavily Democrat, I've got to give those Democrats a reason. I can't just be Democrat light.
Right.
I've got to give them a reason that they can respond to vote for me. And that reason is just what I'm talking about. It's going to be taxes, spending, debt, and matters of personal liberty and let's say decent society, crime.
Well, to your point, in terms of who makes the best decisions, the higher level or lower level. I always, every time I meet someone that's a diehard Democrat, I always say, now, I've known you for a long time. They say, well, yeah. I say, well, who can make a better decision for you in your life, you or me?
Right.
I said, well, of course,
Yeah.
you can make. So then why do you give the authority and control over your life to someone that's up in Washington, D.C., doesn't know you, doesn't care about you, and is only concerned about themselves? Why do you give them your money to affect your life? It doesn't make any sense.
Boards of education, I'm sure you realize this, in most towns I'd say that most of the members tend to be more liberal than other people involved in politics. And yet the one thing that I can say to them that they agree with, it's music to their ears, is to say, I don't want to sit in Hartford and tell you how to run the school system in Southington or Wolcott or Waterbury. And if you represent Wolcott and Waterbury, you realize one solution is not going to work for both these communities. Let every school board figure out the best way to educate their own kids, and let everybody find their own path, and we'll see what works and what doesn't work. But it shouldn't be dictated.
We may have someone calling in here. So is there a caller on the line?
Hey, Dave, great show. Miss Marty tonight. Jim, always good to see you. I just have a comment, Dave, for Senator Joe. I left a message for Senator Joe probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, along with some other politicians that we have. Senator Joe is the only one that got back to me, returned my call. So, in terms of getting him reelected, we need to do what we have to do. We got to help him in that middle of the state, like he was just talking about. Joe, thanks for calling back, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for calling in.
Yeah.
It's easy to get down because, like you said, we have the highest per capita debt in Connecticut of any state in America.
By far, yes.
Yeah, you said 50,000 per head.
Over 50,000 per head. And I mean, you look at the chart and we jump out from the other states. And to have the highest debt per capita and the lowest economic growth, negative economic growth, holy smokes, what a problem.
Caller, who do we have here? Someone calling in?
Yes, just wanted to ask Senator Joe who he felt would be the best candidate to run against Malloy.
I think we got potentially...
Well, I'm putting your name in. I'll just tell you that right now.
Well, take it right out again. I know Clint Eastwood said a man's got to know his limitations. That's not my calling at this situation. I think we got 3 potential candidates. Tom Foley, John McKinney, Mark Boughton. Any one of those 3 is going to be a better governor than Dan Malloy. I think any one of those 3 could beat Dan Malloy. I have to say, I think, speaking of it purely from a political point of view, that it's Tom Foley's nomination to lose. I think he's in the strongest position. And I think he has the skill set to be an excellent governor.
Great. Caller, anything else?
No, that's it. I think the 2 that he mentioned, Foley and McKinney, Boughton's ceilinged out. He has nowhere else to go.
Gotcha. Great. Thanks a lot for calling in.
I don't know about that. I may disagree with him on that. I mean, one of the things, Foley's negative is he tried it and lost already. And I don't know how the voters will take that. Now, certainly he's going to have the war chest to do it.
He's a pretty smart guy.
And the wherewithal. But from a voting and political perspective, the voters may say, hey, you had your shot.
John Rowland lost by 2% in 1990 and came back and got elected in 94.
It depends on the mood of the voters. Boughton's a chief executive of a fairly large city and one of the success stories.
Boughton is sharp as a tack.
Yeah, and
I agree.
I wouldn't underestimate him politically.
Good speaker. I think he comes across very well to people.
Yeah, he's pretty
I'm just saying, if I talk about it purely as a horse race, I think Foley's in a very strong position.
Yeah. Frank, tell Mike I want to stretch this out until Larry's here for sure, okay? Now, Mayor Boughton, I was over there paying. We started a small business here, and I was over filling out a form that said that we have an alarm system hooked up. We have to pay a $70 fee in Danbury to say that we have an alarm system hooked up. I thought that was preposterous. So I left him a note and I said, hey, this is anti-business, left it on his desk. So I don't know if he'll get that or not.
Maybe $90 when you get it back.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Anything else? What can we, as concerned citizens of Connecticut, what can we do to get involved to make a difference?
The simplest thing to do is join your town committee. A Democrat or Republican, if you want to get into politics, find out when your town committee meets, call the town clerk or the registrar of voters, go to the town committee meeting, introduce yourself to the chair, and that is the entree to politics. If you're on the town committee, you're in the game. Then you're meeting the candidates when they come through. You got the chance to be a delegate. You got a chance to be a candidate yourself. You're there to be part of a campaign. And I'd say that's always the advice that I'd give people is get on their town.
But hold it, that means we have to get up and do something.
That's
Isn't
right.
that it?
You got to go to one meeting a month, one very boring meeting. I mean, it's going to be 1 hour out of your life, but that's the way that you get into politics.
Terrific. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming down here.
Oh,
and
my
the message
pleasure.
that you have for Connecticut is fabulous. And I can tell you, we're going to be out there to support you the best we can.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for coming in.
I'll do it again.
Terrific.
Okay. Good to meet you
meeting
both.
Thank you.
So I'm going to just go over as we hot seat this and get our next guest on here. You guys, everybody, listen, when Larry Ditkoff is going to show up on the show, everybody tunes in. So he'll be our next guest. But in the meantime, let me just go over a few news stories that I think are pretty interesting. You heard the president give a speech about 3 weeks ago, and with no question, with complete conviction, he looked the camera in the eye and he said, you know, everybody, it's the only people that contest the fact that the Earth is still warming and that we have the hottest weather, you know, that we've ever had are the flat earthers. So I thought that was interesting. So Barbara Boxer sets up a Senate hearing, and she gets her panel of IPCC advisors, which is the leading authority on climate change and global warming, and gets them out there. And in the process of this Senate testimony says, and so can I see a show of hands of how many on the panel view the Earth as warming and climate change is happening, all the rest? Not one person will raise their hand. In fact, the head of the IPCC, the leading authority on global warming and climate change, had this to say. 98% of IPCC climate models cannot replicate the prolonged pause in global warming. So where's the global warming, Mr. President? Furthermore, over the last 20 years, carbon dioxide levels have exploded. And the foliage covering the Earth has exploded too, up 11% in the last 30 years. I'm going to touch on another one of these liberal themes that I find fascinating is this whole concept of, oh, please don't ship rail, crude. Don't build the Keystone Pipeline. Shipping that oil across the aquifer, which is 1,000 feet underground, is so dangerous and it's going to contaminate one of our great natural resources. So they had this really, really great idea, and they said, you know what we want to do is we're going to ship oil on rail because we all know that's safe and can't really damage anything. Oh! I guess this is a little inconvenient. Take note of the rail crash in Canada. But, oh, that must be a one-off. That surely is an outlier until, oh my gosh, what happened in Spain? 100 people dead, 200 wounded. Canada, what do we have? 40 people vaporized. I wonder if these are one-off. I wonder if this is anecdotal. It's not. I went and I pulled a list of some of the, over the last 5 years, some of the worst train wrecks. Spain, 70 dead, 140 injured. Canada, 50 dead, 2,000 injured. Then we had one in India, 32 dead, 200 injured. We had one in China, 40 dead, 300 injured. We had one in Argentina, 51 dead, 700 injured. We had two trains derail in Connecticut in the last 2 months. So I started thinking to myself, so who benefits by continuing to ship oil by rail? Well, who else but Warren Buffett, the biggest campaign contributor to our President Obama. So there's always a conflict of interest there when people start to propose one thing that's really not in our best interest. I talked to a guy this last week who was an inspector for the rail lines. And I said, hey, how come these things are derailing all the time? And he said, there are a lot of physical dynamics when you're shipping on rail. First, you've got gravel, which gets washed, the rail ties sit in a bed of gravel that gets washed out in rain. The ties expand and contract. The spikes that are holding the rail down, they get loose. And with temperature variation, the track expands and contracts. All of those are formula for disaster to cause these trains to derail. Okay, common sense. Ship oil by pipeline. Build the Keystone Pipeline. Number two. The FBI, this is from the Freedom of Information Act, the FBI had drew up plans to kill Occupy leaders. So you know when the Occupy Wall Street movement was going on? Recent documents that were disclosed from the Freedom of Information found that the FBI had drawn up plans to execute the leaders, to shoot, you have snipers fire on the leaders of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Now, listen, the government has no business taking aim at the citizens of this country. Furthermore, if they're lining up on Occupy Wall Street leaders, who else are they lining up on? Another one that I think is kind of interesting. All the unions that supported Obama and got behind this Obamacare thing, well, not working out so well. Now the Teamsters and the AFL-CIO, they're all turning against Obamacare saying, you know what, this great health care that we've been looking forward to all our life, you're taking it away from us, you're destroying it. In the last half of the show, so we're going to cover a number of things. We're going to cover Detroit. We're going to cover failed Middle East policies. We're going to cover the neighborhood watch committees. We're going to cover a lot of things. One of the things that really has gotten under my skin over the course of the last 2-3 weeks has been the manipulation of the masses around racism, around neighborhood watch committees, around every level of, everything associated with events down in Florida. And one of the things that really concerns me is this notion that somehow or other, if a person is not 100% minority, then everything he does is by definition racist. Doesn't make any sense to me. So look at it. George Zimmerman and the president are just as white as both of them are just as white as each other. That's just a fact. So what I want to do is I want to go to a video clip on a neighborhood watch committee, and this is on the Guardian Angels. And Mike, feel free to cue that up anytime you can get it on, and then.
The Guardian Angels say Chicago's Magnificent Mile, a popular tourist area, may soon have a new name if shoppers and pedestrians aren't careful.
CBS 2's Susanna Song is live along Michigan Avenue as the Guardian Angels patrol there today. Good morning, Susanna.
Good morning, Roseanne. Good morning, Harry. Yeah, right now the Guardian Angels are here on the corner of Michigan Avenue and Chicago. They're passing out these red flyers and they're warning shoppers and tourists of what they're afraid the Mag Mile might turn into. And that is, take a look, the Muggers Mile.
Let's guard and protect our cell phones.
The men in the red berets say they came up with this term not because it is the Muggers Mile, but because they don't want it to become that. They are reminding passersby to put their cell phones away, to install tracking software on their phones, and to log off from their apps, whether it's a banking or email account. Over the weekend, police responded to a few muggings on Michigan Avenue and 200 West Illinois. A few downtown residents we spoke to this morning were surprised to hear the term Muggers Mile.
There was a woman over, I think on Michigan the other day, her iPhone got stolen. So by a bunch of kids. And
I mean, obviously there's been a rash of incidents over the summer so far, but I think I've seen a lot more police presence around the area, especially living here, walking to work every day. So I really wouldn't go to that extreme.
What we don't want is for it to become the Muggers Mile. Again, there's been a rash of attacks in the area. Police have actually stepped up their presence. Things have calmed down quite a bit, but when the weather gets good, you got the flash mobs here, the bash mobs, or shit we call them. People are getting their ID and different things stolen, their cell phones stolen, their purses stolen. There's been some muggings in the areas.
Now, in late March, police flooded the Mag Mile and near the Gold Coast after hundreds of teens got into a fight. Shoppers and tourists became caught in the middle of a chaotic situation. In all, 25 juveniles and 3 adults were charged. Now, Chicago police released this statement a short time ago in response to the Guardian Angels. It reads in part, Chicago's downtown area continues to be safe, and while there have been a few isolated incidents, police have responded quickly, making arrests in several of them before they become a larger problem. Now, a police spokesperson went on to say there have only been 3 robberies in the last 28 days here near the Mag Mile. Reporting live on Michigan Avenue, Susanna Song, CBS 2 News. Roseanne and Harry.
Thank you, Susanna.
So I grew up in Chicago, and this group of the Guardian Angels, they are a neighborhood watch committee that's been around for, I'm going to guess, over 40 years, maybe even a little bit longer. And every time I rode the subway there and I saw Guardian Angels, I felt good about it. A few weeks ago, we learned more and more about this case with George Zimmerman down in Florida. And recently there was a rally supporting George Zimmerman. And this was a woman that was walking with the group of pro-George Zimmerman supporters. And it says, "We're racist and proud." That's concerning at face value. And the conservative groups looked into, and reporters looked into, who was carrying that sign. And she was a Democratic supporter that was very active in fundraising for Democrats. I find that vile and offensive. That has no place in the dialogue. I want to mention something else about George Zimmerman, and I'm very concerned the way people are manipulating the situation down in Florida to try and create that as a racial event. You know, early last week, there was a one-vehicle accident down in Florida, and a family of four, and this is the family of four. This family of four was trapped in a car upside down. There were two people that responded, first responders. One of them was George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman helped pull that family of four out of that car that was upside down. The media did not report on that event until earlier this week. And why is that? It was because they were trying to schedule, the liberals were trying to schedule demonstrations in 100 cities across America. And this notion that, hey, George Zimmerman's actually a good guy willing to stick his neck out and save people didn't fit the narrative. That's concerning. Anyway, let me see if we got a call here. Sorry, caller, if we missed you. You there? Sorry we missed you. Call back in. And yeah, who's there?
Yes, how are you?
Good. You have a question?
I think that that poster you were alluding to was being sarcastic about. I think the irony that they're calling this instance racist when we all know it wasn't racist. So I'm not so sure that we should read too much into that. When she says she's racist and proud, I think unfortunately the media and NBC, MSNBC, in their efforts to make this a racial issue, have engendered that type of a backlash. So I wouldn't say that that woman was racist. I think she was being sarcastic. So I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, no, and caller, to be fair, I would tend to agree with you. Her attempt was to discredit the pro-George Zimmerman movement in an attempt to make them look racist, in my opinion. Would you agree? So anyway, Larry Ditkoff,
Dave,
welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's good to be
And to be fair, we've prepared you for what's going to be being presented. So with just Jim and I here, and you being fully, I feel like we're at a disadvantage. It's like 3-2.
No, Dave. Dave, if I could just first again, welcome to the callers. Oh, to one specific caller, brought my comb.
You look very dapper.
Thank you, Dave. Just a couple of points, just at least for me to start the show. One, in regards to the gentleman who is the state representative who was on before
Joe Markley.
I was. Joe, yes. When you made the point about spending in Washington versus deciding for yourself, what you should spend the money on, Dave, you do realize that government spends for the public good. It's not like government says, I'm going to buy Cheerios for you when you really want Frosted Flakes. Government spend for, the J-30, the F-35 strike fighter. They pay for our armed forces. So there's a difference between the public good and individual want. Okay, so it's really
but they
not.
can tell you can't eat this, or you can't eat that, or no trans fat, or no salt, or no big sodas.
No, that's not true.
Of course they're
that's
jumping
not
in
true,
on
Jim. What the government does, I'm not talking about Bloomberg's initiative in the city, but what government does is it makes sure the facts are reported. There are calorie count information.
Are the facts reported?
There are calorie. Well, does the government say you can't eat trans fat? Is Frito-Lay out of business?
It's banned in New York.
No, it's not. There's side. No, it's.
There's no trans fat in Kentucky Fried. Had to take it out of their stuff.
That's not true. It's not banned in New York. There's some other things that are being banned in schools. but not banned in the city. There's trans fat in McDonald's French fries. You tell me there's no McDonald's in New York? That's one.
KFC took it out of their process.
Okay, that's one thing. In regards to the rail cars, it's not a liberal position, Dave, that oil should only be transported via rail car, not via pipeline. There's the specific instance that we're talking about with the XL Keystone pipeline does not mean that pipelines are not good, as a good source of transportation in general. The issue, and you made reference to it about the Oglala Aquifer, is that in this particular case, you talk about taking heavy crude, which puts much more pressure on a pipeline, and if there were an accident there, that would prove to be a disaster, because that water, it's not just some aquifer, it's one that
and how deep is it?
It's one that I don't know. It's one that goes throughout the that provides water for the farm. Let me just do a couple of things. In regards to the train crash in Lac Megantic, as well as the one in Spain, let me address the one in Spain first. Apparently, the engineer who was driving that train was going double the appropriate speed limit.
I saw the videotape of that. That's frightening.
That's what I read. So that's
miles an hour,
around
the curve.
Yeah. So that and that's what led to the disaster. In regards to the issue with the rail car, it didn't derail while it was in motion. They stopped in Lac Megantic at night. The air brakes were not applied. The handbrakes were not applied. The train was on a gradient and went down, and then it led to a tremendously terrible. That was human error. But I wouldn't say that happens. But I wouldn't say, Jim, that it's an accident waiting to happen.
Okay.
There's risk associated with everything. And then in Zimmerman, I hadn't heard that about this thing with the car crash and the family of four. That a man can, carries his gun, he's told not to go out. All right, maybe you don't know every specific instance of what happened with the Trayvon Martin shooting, but that a guy could walk with absolutely no consequences, no manslaughter, no murder, and he just got away lucky.
I'm going to touch base on stand your ground.
Affirmative defense of self-defense.
Okay, so which one do we want to take first? Let me bring up this George Zimmerman case, because it concerns me deeply.
Okay.
Did you know that first of all, there's this big move to repeal stand your ground laws, even though they weren't used or applied in this case?
Correct.
I think repealing stand your ground laws is very, very racist, because in Florida, minorities as a percentage of the population use stand your ground laws for their defense at a rate 300% higher than the rest of the population. That's just a fact. So the reality is that most gun laws, as they pertain to the inner city, are very, very racist. And think about it, it was the NRA that went down south at the end of the Civil War and forced all of those Democrats that had passed laws banning blacks from owning guns and said, you can't do that because they're citizens too, they're entitled to defend themselves. And guess what? All of a sudden, they were not getting picked on nearly as much. They could defend themselves.
Yeah, but Dave, institutions morphed themselves. The NRA in 1860, actually, if I understand, the NRA was founded after the Civil War by Northern troops, by Union troops who thought that Union sharpshooting during the Civil War was very poor, and gun safety was poor. That's not what the what the NRA is about now. It's about any kind of gun regulation, about opposing any kinds of gun regulation. As for stand your ground, Zimmerman actually, part of the reason why he acted the way he did is that he was very familiar with stand your ground. I mean, I think one of the issues behind it is that it enables people, or it empowers people who ordinarily would not be so empowered to carry guns. And
so what do you think about the Guardian Angels? Should they be able to do a neighborhood watch committee like that?
Well, the Guardian Angels, the answer to your question is yes. They should have neighborhood watches.
As long as they don't have guns.
Well.
Hello? Missed him again. Tell him to keep calling back.
Okay. In regards to, Dave, you have to be very careful. I'd like to see him not have guns. A lot of times.
So then they couldn't really hurt anyone then if they didn't have guns.
Well, they'd be limited in terms of what they could do. But I've seen the Guardian Angels in New York. By the way, that's Curtis Leewood's group. I don't think they've been around 40 years, but they've been neighborhood watches.
Hi, Dave.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Good. What's going on?
Where do I start?
Well, I'll start at the beginning. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm really happy that Larry combed his hair tonight.
Thank you so much.
So what's the question?
But I mean, every issue he's talked about, including beginning with the trains, is absolutely asinine. I mean, okay. If we didn't have trains with the possibility of human error, if that's in fact what caused those train wrecks, then a pipeline would be safer for the very reasons you said it would be. I mean, I can tick down everything he said. And then the Zimmerman case, I'm blown away what he's saying about the Zimmerman case. The guy was being pummeled by a young black punk. There is no question on that. We have witnesses. We have everything you could possibly need.
Well, there might be a question whether he was a punk, but...
Yeah.
So I don't know, Larry, where do you come from?
You know...
Well, okay.
Well, it's really interesting.
Is it okay if I cut you off, or do you have anything else? Well, I'll give him a chance to answer, but we're going to go to the next caller, okay?
Okay.
A second juror came out.
No, I'll let you go. I have much more, but that's all right.
Okay.
Hold on. A second juror came out today. Remember, there was the first woman who appeared in the dark, B37. Then there was an alternate. Then this B29, I think, came out today. Talk about the media bias and the media kind of spinning things. You know, they talked about the jury. There were 5 white women, and then there was one of undetermined race or possibly Hispanic. Well, it turns out she came out. She's Hispanic. She's a dark-skinned Hispanic. I'll let the New York Times decide if she's a white Hispanic or a black Hispanic. That's their game. But she said, in my heart, I thought he committed murder. He got away with murder. But the law said he was not guilty. And that's what a jury's supposed to do. A jury's not supposed to change social policy for the nation. A jury's supposed to deal with the facts in front of them. And the facts in front of them were that Trayvon Martin was on top of him. He was beating him. It was George Zimmerman screaming, and he shot to defend himself. And that's all the jury had.
So this is why... Go ahead, Larry.
No, well, in regards, a couple of things. Let me respond. Opine. Thank you. I'll respond to the caller. First, in regards to the Zimmerman case, and I'll get to the rail cars in a moment. Zimmerman said that he had his... the gun was in his back waistband, okay, right, but in his back. And he was on the ground, and
I thought he said it was in his pocket, but
I said back waistband. Then Trayvon Martin is beating him up, and then he said Trayvon Martin reached for the gun, and then he took out the gun and shot him. You know, if you look at it just from I'll call it a CSI kind of standpoint, if he's on the ground, and his back is on the ground, how is Trayvon Martin going to be able? Is going to be able to. So
there was a witness that collaborated the fact that the guy was on top getting pummeling the guy on the ground.
There really was.
That's collaborated. But I don't want to debate the facts. My biggest concern in this whole case is that Washington, the president, has been able to turn this into a purely racial event. And I think every time the president does it, first of all, it was a great way to get everybody off of Benghazi. It was a way to get them off of IRS scandals. It was a way to get everybody off of thinking about attacking the press.
The president brought up those scandals the other day. You don't want to talk about it, but the president brought up those scandals the other day.
He said
they're phony scandals.
Yeah, he mentioned phony. I saw he said that.
That's not the way to get rid of them.
Right, it was his way to deflect, to pivot. Okay, let's get off of all this, and every time he does it, he goes and he panders and gins up and divides and causes conflict in this country. He did it in Florida.
Well, Dave, I don't have his speech memorized, but a couple of things he said. He goes, one, you have to respect. He didn't say the jury was wrong. He said, look, there was a law, the jury spoke, and we have to respect the verdict, and there shouldn't be any violence. Yeah. But he was trying to make a point that there have been so many instances in our country's history where young black guys, have been killed, and under
94%.
Dave, I don't want to hear quote statistics. I'm talking about this specific. Okay,
you want to ignore the facts. Go ahead. Go on.
No, I'm talking about this specific. You're talking about.
The president acknowledged what he was about to tell you, though.
I'm not interested in that. I'm talking about specific cases, and that people have been, attacked with little or.
But the president said Trayvon Martin would be more likely to be killed by a peer than a white person.
Okay.
Let's see what the caller has to say.
No, but I'm saying without any consequence. That's what happened here. Okay.
Caller, what do you got?
Is that the vast majority of violence with blacks is performed by blacks on blacks. And the fact that the Al Sharptons and the Jeffys and even President Obama, who is now the king of race baiters, will not talk about that issue is absolutely criminal.
Right.
Because it doesn't fit the race baiting narrative.
That's right. That's right. All right. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Yeah. 94% of black murders are black on black. And what troubles me is I don't think we should focus any murder is a race issue. I'm 100% opposed to hate crimes. The fact is, a crime is a crime. No one will ever know a person's heart. I don't care what a person's heart is. If they killed someone and it's murder, they should all do the same time.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. I know, there's a lot of people feel that way about hate crimes, and I agree. Actually, I agree with you. You know, a crime's a crime,
Yeah.
but...
Hold, can you say that again?
A crime's a crime, yeah.
No, the other part. You agree with me.
Wow. Yeah, it's not, doesn't
Boy,
happen
does that feel
often.
good. Let me savor the moment here.
It doesn't happen often, but it happens on occasion. Look, you know, you talk about, or whatever, 94% black on black, but I hear the attacks on this Trayvon Martin, that he occasionally smoked pot. Well, he was going to be violent. That Skittles and Sprite, it could be put together and it could be made to some sort of drug, so that really he didn't want Skittles because he was, because he was hungry. He wanted Skittles so he could, get high. No. And the attacks on this guy's character. Oh, he had a lot of tattoos. You look at him on the night of the shooting, yes, he had a hoodie, but he's wearing, I think it was khakis. He's very, he didn't have baggy pants. He's very respectfully dressed and respectably dressed, excuse me. And people just attacked this kid to justify the narrative of Zimmerman.
Because they were reacting to the attacks, I think. I mean, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. They were reacting to the attacks on Zimmerman, which were just as unfounded. So that's why the jury had to deal with the courtroom.
I don't think that's true, Jim.
Zimmerman was attacked.
Zimmerman was told to stay in the car.
Was he a racist?
Calling everyone a punk.
He was a punk.
Caller, what do you got?
A sheet that went a mile long. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Trayvon Martin had a sheet a
They
mile
want
long.
to continue to hide the fact that the kid was a punk. He was a punk.
Couple of things.
All right, let me cut you off there. Thanks for
Okay.
calling. Well, okay, so here's the thing for me. Whether the guy was a punk or not, I don't know. I don't know him, and I don't think that's relevant in the situation per se, necessarily.
Yeah, it's not.
And I didn't sit on the jury. I wasn't glued to this thing for 8 hours a day.
Right.
At some point you have to, and it troubles me deeply when Eric Holder comes out and attacks the jury. He didn't sit in the courtroom. Shoot, I mean, nobody in Washington reads any of the bills they vote for.
What Eric Holder said, he's going to consider filing a civil rights charge against Zimmerman.
Yeah, and so you knew that the FBI was in charge to go down to Florida and do a background check, and now they set up a hotline that anybody knows anything about George Zimmerman. I'm telling you what, Obama has single-handedly put George Zimmerman and his entire family at risk.
But the FBI last year, when the crime happened, did interviews of people and found no racism. So, but here, let me tell you what it's all about. And I think the Obama administration and Eric Holder are appeasing the Sharptons. Yeah, we're going to look at it. They know there's no case there.
But
they're pivoting. They're pivoting to stand your ground. The same thing happened in Sandy Hook. Tragically, what happened there? You had this tragic violence, and the killer didn't allow the parents justice because he took his own life.
Right.
So for the parents searching for justice, right, with the politicians ready to push them forward, I'm not blaming the parents. They're trying to latch on to some idea of figuring this thing out. They latch on to the gun control.
Yeah.
Unrelated to what happened in Sandy Hook, right? The kid tried to buy guns. The strong Connecticut gun laws stopped him. He had to steal the guns from his mother, legally bought guns. But they pivoted, and it became a national debate on gun control. Now it's a national debate on everything that didn't happen in Stanford, Florida,
right.
On stand your ground and this dialogue on race.
Well, and I think it's the height of hypocrisy for someone sitting in Washington to look at on the surface of what he views as the facts and say, because George Zimmerman wasn't black, it had to be a racial decision that he made in profiling.
That's not true.
That's what they're saying, though. That's what Al
Like I
Sharpton's
told
saying.
you, that our president, Obama, is just as white as George Zimmerman.
Look, putting that aside, Zimmerman was told. I mean, we know what the 911
And his testimony
call
was when they said, go back, go to your car, he was returning to. I don't know the facts. You and I don't know the facts.
No, we know what was said on the 911 call.
Right,
we know he called him a punk.
That wasn't a crime.
This punk,
the cracker?
This punk,
Cracker?
when he's going to get away with it again. He didn't do anything.
The cracker?
He didn't do anything.
Is that a racial term or not, cracker?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what's your point?
Well, that was Trayvon Martin's slur towards George Zimmerman. Maybe he punched him in the nose because it was racially motivated. We don't know what happened there.
There are things, Jim, that we do know.
Well, we know he called him a cracker. We know he
don't-
punched him in the nose.
I haven't
Right?
heard. I haven't heard cracker. I haven't heard.
That was the testimony of his friend, Jim.
I'm not saying it wasn't. Oh, that's
Of course, she said that. She's a defense.
Caller, what do you got?
Prosecution witness.
Caller, what do you got?
Larry.
Yes.
In the testimony, he called him not only a cracker, but a creepy ass cracker.
Good point. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, if a guy came, okay. Well, you know,
But
if
you
a
know
guy
what?
came after,
That doesn't concern me either. I mean,
if a guy, well, hold on, Dave. If a guy comes after you and he's got a gun, you're walking around, you come back at 7:30 at night, you have your Skittles and Sprite or whatever he was drinking, and there's a guy following you. And, you know,
So if a black guy was following you in that situation, you would call him a creepy ass N-word? You would use that?
again, you don't know what Zimmerman, might have said.
I'm
to him
putting you in
first.
Trayvon's place
Yeah, but first-
and a black guy in Zimmerman's place,
What's
and you
it-
would
what's
call
it-
him a creepy ass
What-
N-word, you just
what-
said. I think that's outrageous you would do that.
Did I say that?
You just did.
No, I didn't.
You were trying to
No, what I'm
empathize
But
with
here-
Trayvon.
No, what
I
I'm
want
saying,
to raise.
Trayvon-
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying, I think Trayvon Martin, was reasonably scared. He probably something like, "What are you doing, man?" And then, something, escalated from there. You can't go around, and this is one of the problems, we have, just with the fact that we do have all these guns. There's 88 guns for every 100 people in the United States. It's the highest gun ownership rate.
Okay, so you're
pretty much.
saying if-
And here's my question, Dave. I never really got an answer from you.
Yeah.
Japan, 1/3 of the population, 11 gun-related homicides. Do you know how many homicides between 2007 and 2011? 68,280.
So let me just get
according to the
let me get it
FBI.
straight. If we banned all guns,
No one's talking that.
No, I'm saying if we
Okay.
did,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't have murder and we wouldn't have these problems.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so keep in mind,
It's a question of
before the 1300s, there were no guns, and guess who always won in a conflict? The big, ugly guy like me against the much smaller person.
The 1300s?
But why
Yeah,
are you
there were
citing
no
Japan
guns.
and Europe in these things? I don't
No,
understand.
no,
This is
I
the
do.
United-
No,
Why?
no,
This
no.
is the United States.
Because these are other civilized countries
Okay.
Larry.
that are that have
Yeah.
that have large economies, that are democracies, that have strict gun laws, and they have no gun-related.
Well, let me ask you, do you know
homicides.
Europe and
Or a few gun-related
do you know
homicides.
Europe, civilized Europe, bans abortions after 20 weeks? Some of them do it at 14 weeks. So, do you think the Texas law that was going to be passed was that?
But Tim, that's not relevant to what we're
No, but
discussing.
you're
with
hailing the Europeans. Let's hail them
One,
on
I was
all
talking about
fronts.
Jim, I'm making specific. No, that's not. I'm making specific.
I'm saying I don't care.
I'm making specific references of policy. Why are homicide rates substantially lower in other civilized countries than they are here in the United States?
So why are
Via
homicide
firearms.
rates significantly higher in America in gun-free zones?
Why are
Homicide rates
I
significantly
heard
higher
you,
in
I
gun-free
heard you.
zones. The cities across America with the strictest gun control laws have the highest homicide rates.
Ray
Why is
Kelly?
that?
Ray Kelly just came out and said that we've saved, with Mayors Against Illegal Guns, we've saved 7,300 lives.
And you know how many guns that are being bought with
No.
these?
That was with stop and frisk, and he's under attack for stop and frisk. The Sharptons are saying that's a civil rights violation, but stop and frisk has saved
They said-
7,000 lives.
No.
Yeah,
no,
that
we
was
were
the
talking
op-ed.
about- We were talking. No, I'm not talking about an op-ed. I'm talking about what he said.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing that
Yeah.
intrigues me, though, is this whole concept that somebody sitting in Washington can point a finger at a guy down in Florida and say, you're profiling just because you don't look like him over here. Now, the same people that are ganging up on this whole concept of profiling are the people that are doing it every day in the IRS to conservative Tea Party groups. Right? They're profiling.
And,
They're
No,
saying
what they
because
said-
of your
what-
ideology,
And Christine,
you
the woman
possibly
from
can't
Delaware,
be a good person.
did you hear
oh
that
yeah,
one?
yeah, yeah.
Christine O'Donnell?
Yeah,
What happened?
She got a notice that they
The
had
witch.
illegal
Yeah.
looked into her
Oh, the
files,
witch.
Yeah.
and they put a lien, an erroneous lien on her property, which was used against her
Yeah,
opponent.
so I
And they
mean,
said,
you know,
"Oops,
to coin a
oops, we
famous
accessed
phrase,
the
I have a
files."
dream, and I have a dream that we're going to get beyond racial issues in this country. All people will be treated equal, and regardless of who commits a crime on who, it'll be treated the same way. Race crimes divide the country. It just does. I'll give you an example. I lived out in Kansas for a number of years. There was a horrific crime where two guys, minorities, tortured, abused, and raped a group of 5 people, 3 guys and 2 girls overnight. Took them out in the field, stripped them naked, and shot them each in the back of the head. I'm telling you, it never once crossed my mind that this is a race crime. All it was to me was a horrific murder, and these guys need to be put away forever.
Right.
I never crosses my mind regarding race when crimes are committed.
Right.
And every time minority leaders do that, they pander to a group, divide America. There was a poll that came out today that said race relations today are worse than they've been since 1994. How can that be with a minority president? It's disturbing to me.
I'm not sure that's true. So do you think that people who are upset that an all-white jury, or maybe 5 whites and apparently Latino,
one of,
or is it maybe some questionable
race,
yeah. Would acquit this guy? I mean, do you not see why people are upset about it, Dave?
Which part? The
sense,
fact that he was found innocent?
Well, it wasn't found innocent. He's found not guilty. There's a difference, but. He was acquitted, and you heard one person said the jury, he probably did it, but it's a question.
Okay, we're going to pivot lightning round. Egypt, Morsi, the Obama administration came out today and said, when the Egyptian military overthrew a democratically elected president, that wasn't a coup, so now we can keep giving them $1.5 billion a year. Your thoughts?
Dave, they just said I just read it in the newspaper today, they're not going to be selling them any type of military.
Back on some
actually, this afternoon they came out and said they were. So
I read it.
They ruled it was not a coup.
They did rule it wasn't a coup, or they said we're not going to make the determination that we don't make that determination, which is odd because the determination is the contingency for the aid.
See, when you have this random application of the law, it's very concerning, and I think it undermines our whole political system. Anyway, other topics we were going to cover. Syria. Are we supporting the Taliban over there?
There's a real... Well, the real concern is the al-Nusra guys who are very much against Bashar. It's not the Taliban, it's Al-Qaeda.
Yeah. That's how do you feel about America supporting Al-Qaeda? Last time I checked, they were kind of the bad guys.
We did it in Libya.
I know. It's a very... I wish I had the answer to that. We got a call.
Yeah, we're pretty much out of time here. We'll take one last call. Caller, are you there? Hello?
Hey.
Make it quick. You got 5 seconds.
I wanted to know what Larry thought about Anthony Weiner.
Oh, here we go. Thanks.
It shows a complete lack of discipline.
That shows the best the Democrats can come up with.
He's probably not going to get the nomination. It shows a lack of discipline. It's
discipline.
Yeah, that a guy after he gets caught does it again.
Than that, though.
So, folks, let me just tell you something. By now, after 60 minutes of dialogue tonight, I'm sure you're all screaming out there to get Marty Heiser back. Let me thank everybody for participating in the show tonight. I think it was a lively discussion. We've got a great country. We need your input. Like Senator Joe Markley said tonight, it's not until everybody in this country gets up off their seat, gets involved, that we're going to make great change. And there's hope for Connecticut. There's hope for America. Thanks for coming. Have a great night.